Yes, this is WeatherBrains, episode number 506, September 28th, 2015. The pre-show, the magical time of the program where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. This part of the program is not on the produced audio podcast. It is only for those bold enough to watch on YouTube. Man, that is funky audio. Wow. And see, Bill, that's you. You've gone silent on us. Say something.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Yeah, your audio's shot.
Yeah. Sounds pretty bad on my end.
It's bad, man. Now we got to get Bill off that Commodore 64, or maybe it's a VIC 20, or maybe it's a TRS 80. And you guys aren't old enough to remember those, which is very sad.
I'm just going to look at you like you know what you're talking about.
yeah, just kind of smile and nod and act like, yeah, I know what the guy's talking about. Those were vintage personal computers from the 1980s. They had no storage other than a cassette tape deck.
I actually had a 386.
Really?
And I had with a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive and everything. Played games off DOS, so I know a little bit about that stuff.
Well, these computers,
I had a Commodore 64. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we think that's what you're using now. That's why your audio went funky.
Hey, this is one of your stupid MacBook Pros now. Don't be giving me about my computer.
What kind of audio interface are you using?
Well, I'm actually using a USB mic. My Fast Tracks absolutely will not do stereo now. I do not know why.
Man, I got a little mixer, and boy, that thing sounds good. That is the nicest sounding audio compression I have ever heard. It's a USB
Send me what it is.
It's a little mixer, and I got it to take to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
it's small. I just need. I think it's got 4, and but every input's got compression, and boy, it sounds good.
How much did it cost, James?
It was very inexpensive. I was like $99 or something. I mean, but wow. But we compressed the audio anyway. I listened to, if you go back and listen to last week's show, the audio version, not the YouTube, but the audio version, boy, that compression really, you can hear it on that. I played September by Earth, Wind, and Fire to start the show last week, which is weird, but it was the 21st night of September. I had to. And the compression was awesome. I mean, that is just too cool. All right, let me see here. We got more guests to bring on here. We got to get Patrick.
That's weird.
What is weird?
I never got an invitation.
Well, how did you get on the show here then?
You just crashed the party?
I just crashed the party. Show title.
I crashed the party. The first of many.
Party Crasher Brian Peters. I can't wait for Larry the Cable Guy to be on the show.
Oh yeah, I did. I've had a wild day. I just saw some headline email title: Larry the Cable Guy and Climate.
Yeah. He apparently took on Dr. Shepard after Weather Geeks yesterday after Bastardi was on.
Really?
The email is a link to you can see the whole conversation. It's pretty.
Was this a Twitter conversation?
Yeah. Evidently, Larry the Cable Guy's a faithful Weather Geeks viewer and a climate change expert, evidently. So.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Who knew?
Okay, now I'm nervous.
Yeah, it's bad when we're starting to buzz the show. We hadn't even started here. So they're building a new set here. We have these guys in here. I don't even know where they're from, but they're set builders, and it is a radical situation in here. So if you hear
a lot of hammering and sawing,
I was about to say, if you hear some funky noises, just be aware that we have a beyond major construction project going on here. I mean, it's.
Did you know they're supposed to be finished by Friday?
I believe it. As fast as they're working in there, I would believe that. And again, I've been warned: don't take pictures, don't go in there, don't take pictures, no Periscope, no, Facebook Live, no nothing.
No Song of the Night tonight?
No, we'll do Song of the Night. They just don't want me to go in the new studio set construction. I'm pretty transparent. I mean, it's no secret we're building a new set, but they just want to throw it out on the air. I guess I can understand. So I will.
You want me to tell you how much it cost?
How much does it cost?
I have on good authority it's costing a lot of money.
Well, how much? Curious minds want to know.
Probably 1/4 of your annual salary.
Ooh, 6 figures, huh?
Yes.
Oh, brother. Please. This show's going right down the tubes.
Coming from a guy who gets a humongous federal check.
Yeah,
Brian. That's what
Brian knows my next line. Those big NOAA retirement checks he gets.
Right.
So who are we? We're missing Nate Johnson, and I think everybody else is here. Let's go down the line here. Patrick, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. No problem.
Give us a little mic check.
Hold on.
And your camera angle's a little funky. We're seeing the top of your forehead.
Looks like JB used to look some nights.
Yeah, that's right. JB would have that camera, man. You can see like maybe 1/5 of his face.
It's like the guy on Home Improvement, the next door neighbor.
Looking over the fence.
Peeked over the fence. Yeah, that guy was awesome. Now that was I hadn't thought about that show in years. That show was funny.
Howdy,
wow.
neighbor.
That's a good look though on Patrick.
See Kevin here. No, Patrick. We're seeing half his head.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can only see half of you.
Get a couple phone books, Patrick.
Well, I was first trying. No, I adjusted the monitor so that I could figure out why the sound wasn't working, and now I'll adjust it back.
There we go.
Hey, John, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, good. We got that fixed, Bill.
Is your echo gone?
Yeah, the echo's gone.
What'd you do to it?
There's a little listen button on the settings. You click it off, and magically went away.
Oh, good.
Hey, Jennifer, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Don't call him sir. It'll go to his head.
Yeah, she called me sir today. I felt really
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I was taught by my mama you call anybody older than you sir. So Brian, sir, welcome to the show.
And don't you forget that.
Yeah, sir. So we are. Let me look and see here if we're. Got to be sure we're all together. Are we on the air yet? Not quite. Once we get the cable television, we can do that. We can go on the air. I think I've loaded everything up here. And also, all we're missing is Nate, and he tends to show up at the last minute. Nate's a busy man. So, Brian, you're stealing our storm chase vehicle tomorrow. Where are you going to do?
No, I'm just going to drive it to Tuscaloosa.
Well, we're curious. What are you doing in Tuscaloosa?
I'm giving a talk to an EMA class on storm spotters.
And
what they
we
need to look for.
And we understand that Brian, every time he's in Tuscaloosa, eats at the local Hooters there. So be sure and stop
No,
by.
I'm going to eat at Cheddar's. Cheddar's is better.
Cheddar's. Have you ever been to Dreamland, the original Dreamland down there?
Yes, I like that too.
The one in Jerusalem Heights, that's a classic.
Yeah. You feel like you're going to be lost getting out there.
Yeah, so this Saturday I've actually got a day off. They're on the road.
All right.
I need a day off. All right, let's see. We're up there, so let's go. Hello to our cable television viewers. Let me get the recorders going here. Recorder number 1 and recorder number 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Time to talk weather, atmospheric science, meteorology. What do you say? This is WeatherBrains episode number 506 for September 28th, 2015. We are now officially into the fall season. We had the supermoon eclipse. Brian Peters, did you see that at your house last night?
I did. The clouds broke up for the first half, saw the eclipse occur, then the clouds thickened, went back in the house, came out an hour later, and there was this thin spot, and it appeared as the blood moon.
Ah.
And then I went to bed.
Yeah.
There was no point in seeing the second half. I'd already seen the first half, so it was gorgeous. That was cool.
It was, and it's interesting with social media. That's kind of your window to the world, but nothing beats going out in the yard and looking up. There's just something that's way too cool about that. At my place, we had just a lot of clouds, and it wasn't working very well, but I got some stunning images from around the country. So, and most of the people that sent them in listened to this show. So thank you for doing that. That was awesome.
By the way, one of my neighbors was leaving to take his kids to see if they could go find a place to watch it better than our neighborhood, and he saw me and my other neighbors standing out there, and he stopped and looked and said, "Well, I guess I'll just put the car back in the garage," and then they came and joined us.
So yeah, driven to Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Selly is in Wichita Falls, Texas, where he's prepping with great intensity for his 9 o'clock news.
And following the lead of our previous two guests, you'll notice there's a book behind me, and I wanted to plug this. This is my wife's latest release, 100 Piano Practice Tips, How to Get Your Kids to the Keyboard, now just out in paperback.
What? This is
Fabulous.
Great. This is fantastic.
So this is the book that's going to be behind me, like the other guys. And speaking of books, though, did you guys get this from Jim?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. That was a surprise.
What a nice thing. Jim Digby sent this, the Event Safety Guide, big, giant, thick book, and a really neat T-shirt, I guess he sent to all of us, that says Life Safety First, and something on the back about proud supporter of the Event Safety Alliance. But that was a really good show, and I was thinking about it on Friday because we had an incident here. It wasn't a bad one, but there's a festival here. It's the last year of it, called Falls Fest, that happened on Friday and Saturday. And we had a little thunder shower, a little cluster of thunder showers. It popped up north of Wichita Falls and came south from Lawton. And Clint Black was playing in an outdoor venue at this Falls Fest. And about between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, there was all kind of panic going on because they saw some lightning off in the distance, of course, and those storms were weakening. But I would have liked to have had this book at the end of the week, but now I'm really going to go through it because it helps me prep for these types of things. So special thanks to Jim for that, the Event Safety Guide. And did I mention my wife's book? You can see that behind me. 101 piano practice tips.
Where's that book available?
It's available on Amazon, and you can find that right now.
Well, forget that. Can you get it like on these doodads?
Yes, the electronic version came out first, and so this is now the printed version that you see behind me here. I had nothing to do with it other than the cover.
Okay.
Nice cover.
Unless you want to call the show 101 Piano Practice Tips.
There you go. This is the show brought to you by Piano Practice Tips Incorporated.
So have I brought the show to a grinding halt now?
Yeah, I was about to say.
We're moving over for Piano Brains.
So hang on here. Hang on here. This is an interesting little bit of information that just came in.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
So this tweet, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but hey, who cares about truth? Yeah, Westboro Baptist Church says it intends to picket OU's College of Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences on October 8th.
Wow.
Do we know anything about this?
Why that day? Why not the day we're there?
We're not doing that.
we think these jabronis ought to come out there the day we're there, and we'll set these guys straight.
Yeah.
Wow. What a bunch of haters. Who are these people? I mean, where are they from? I mean, gosh. Rick, what did you do? Rick, you're in the middle of all this. What did you do to attract these people?
We're the federal government. We're not the OU College of Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences. So credit or blame or responsibility, whoever they're mad at, it's not us, evidently. So no, I don't know. I saw that on Twitter this evening, and I hope it's wrong. I hope it's a false rumor because why? Yeah, I don't know.
That's just crazy. Nuts. And we should mention that Dr. John is out tonight. He's watching football. And the Packers and the Chiefs Where's this guy's priorities? Dr. John, I mean, come on. Well, this is WeatherBrains. Anyway, Dr. John is out. I think Aubrey she will be back, as I understand it, next week. And she's going to have 5 hours worth of email to read. And we're going to get Nate on the show here. While I'm working on Nate, Bill Murray, bring in our guests.
Yeah. By the way, James, your invitation to this hangout just showed up on my computer.
Wow. Hey.
Slow getting to Helena.
Modern technology.
Yeah, there you go. Well, James, the 40th National Weather Association annual meeting is coming up October 17th through the 22nd. I'm excited to say that almost everyone on the screen will be there. Everybody except Jennifer. That is on that screen right now will be there. And the show alumni, John Faree and Dr. Patrick Marsh are the program co-chairs, and we want to start the show off tonight by talking to them. Gentlemen, the weather world is ready to come to Oklahoma City. Are you ready for us?
We are ready. Right, Patrick?
Patrick's got a concertina wire strung around his office. He's not coming until November. I know how that feels.
Oh, hey, Bill, your audio's shot. Sorry. Bill's on a Commodore 64, and we're trying to get an upgrade to maybe a TRS-80 or something. So, no, when do you guys pick it up? Tell us about the big shindig in Oklahoma City.
Oh, I'll start, and Patrick, you just jump in. We've got Oklahoma City's quite a place now to go to. It's actually a pretty good destination. We expect big crowds. I think probably over 700, maybe even more than that. It's downtown, so we've got a good venue down there. There's a lot of restaurants, new attractions. So hopefully people get a little opportunity to go walk around, see the canal, maybe take in the memorial, those type of things. Saturday we've got the golf outing for those that show up early and want to play golf. Nate, are you going to play golf? Caught him off guard.
Apparently not.
He's looking up golf to see what.
Yeah. I like the name of this golf course that Betsy chose, John. Yeah. Early wine. I thought you should have. Was early beer closed or something that day?
Yeah.
This group is more of a beer group, I think.
The problem in
The problem is in Oklahoma, beer would have to be 3-2, and nobody wants that.
I'll bring the scotch.
So continue, John Faree.
Well, I'll hand it off to Patrick, and he'll probably want to talk about the weather-safe schools thing going on Saturday.
So what John's alluding to is on Saturday we're partnering with Oklahoma Climatological Survey and the Oklahoma Mesonet, as well as the OU College of Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences to schools, and it's basically it's a free public safety officials and teachers, and the idea is we're focusing on the role schools play in emergency in the emergency management realm with children, and so we've got a full agenda of things that are going to take place with the weather ready schools. Just some of the talks that we have in the afternoon breakout session. We have someone coming from the Oklahoma State Department of Health to talk about calming kids' weather. Refuge areas in schools, and then the fine folks at Weather Decision Technologies, the radar.
I think Patrick's got some bandwidth issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've lost him.
I'll pick it up, Patrick. I guess you probably got one of those Commodore 64s too, right?
they're all the rage.
They're on the rage. I actually had one of those. The big thing on Sunday, of course, is the broadcast meteorology workshop, which some of you are involved with, and they've got a great lineup. The student workshop has also got a great lineup on Sunday, and they have in the afternoon this speed mentoring, and that session is expanded to some degree, and it will include dinner this time, and then they'll go into a master class. So we'll work with students over pretty good on Sunday. A pretty unique event Sunday night is the Research to Operation Nexus. It's spelled RON for a reason. It's kind of a memorial to Ron Presbolinski, who all of you know, and a big part of our community who passed last year. And he had a lot to do with moving research to operations, so we thought it would be appropriate to have a session, kind of unique format. There's not going to be any presentations. It's basically been an exchange of ideas, and we're going to move from table to table, be up and moving around quite a bit. So ought to be fun for those that get there early enough to attend.
So, John, talk about the icebreaker on Monday night for a second. Then I want to circle back to something that's important to the broadcasters on Saturday night.
Okay. Yeah, there's going to be buses at the hotel to take us all down to the National Weather Center in Norman, and that icebreaker won't just be at the National Weather Center. It's actually going to be throughout the research campus. We're going to take a look at the Radar Innovations Lab and the new offices of the National Weather Association, and several other companies, of course, are down there in the research campus, and we hope to have again, quite a bit of movement from one building to the next, and that type of thing. Is there something I missed there, Patrick, if you're still on? I don't know. He might have dropped off.
Yeah, Patrick was saying he could hear us fine, but we couldn't hear him. So were you talking about Saturday night or Monday night there?
That was Monday night. That's Monday night. Yeah.
But you're going to have a special session on Saturday night for the broadcasters?
Yeah, for the broadcasters, and they'll have to, pay $20 to kind of offset the cost. But there was a lot of them that didn't want to be able to stick around until Monday night, and they kind of wanted their own session. So we've set up a special tour and session on Saturday night for the broadcasters.
Well, we're very excited that you're going to have us for WeatherBrains. You tied us up with the university, and we're going to do a special show from there on Monday night too. So,
right,
John and Patrick, we're going to actually have everybody that you see on the screen there from WeatherBrains on the stage that night, plus John Scala. So, it's going to be a fun night.
Well, we're looking forward to having you there, and I probably should also mention that James is going to be one of our keynote speakers Tuesday.
You guys really lowered the bar this year, huh?
No, we raised the bar.
Now they wanted somebody really good and really important, since they couldn't find anybody like that. They wound up with me. I'm gonna do a talk called "The Intersection of Science, Communication, and Compassion," and I want everybody to hear this. Okay, everybody in the weather enterprise. I just want them to hear me out. So I'm excited.
Well, speaking of that, John and Patrick, how many registrations do you have? Are we looking at record territory here?
Well, we're trying to beat your record there in Birmingham, I think. So I believe we are. I don't know how many registrations. Perhaps Patrick does, but we've sold out all the rooms in the block of the hotel. They went to a second hotel, sold out all those, and they're now at the third hotel. So they're filling up a lot of rooms. I know that. And so we are expecting a pretty good crowd. I'm hoping at least 750, but you never know. So we'll see how that works.
And,
I'll say based on the number of hotel rooms that have been sold, Janice is estimating that we're on pace for around 750.
Boom. Wow, that's fantastic. That is just great. So now the broadcasters' dinner on Monday night is back in Oklahoma City, right? There'll be an early bus. I know a lot of the broadcasters are concerned if they go to the icebreaker, they'll be able to get back to downtown Oklahoma City to have dinner at Abuelos. Is that right?
I'm not entirely sure how the logistics with the broadcast dinner are going to work out. That's still something to be negotiated, so to speak. I know the dinner is in Oklahoma City, and so we're still working out those details in terms of how to get people back.
We'll all carpool with James. Oh no, wait, we'll still be on the stage at the National Weather Center, James. That'll be all right. Now you're doing concurrent sessions, which is relatively new to the annual meeting. So talk about that process and what we can expect there.
You want to go, John, or you want me to take that?
I'll take the first part, and you take the second part. We had 350 some odd. Patrick knows the actual number of abstracts, so we want to provide as many of the oral abstracts as possible. So to do that, you have to kind of go to concurrent sessions, and so we have 6 of those? Patrick, is that right? Seven of those. Wow. I'm sorry here. Yeah. So we tried to get interesting talks in both sessions. I don't think you can go wrong going to either session. We also have a large number of posters and 3 poster sessions, and so we want to give plenty of time for the poster sessions too, because I think there's a lot in those poster sessions. And I might actually add one thing, was kind of Patrick's idea, and I think it was going to work great. Is that Wednesday night, we're going to have a special set, kind of cherry pick some really exciting or interesting talks that are off the wall that that maybe wives or people traveling with you might want to come to, and that type of thing. I think there's one on the what would happen if the 1925 tri-state tornado occurred today, and another one on the Civil War and how tornadoes and severe thunderstorms affected the Civil War, and some really interesting talks on Wednesday night. So we're trying to kind of come up with a new and inventive ways to try to get as many of the presentations in as possible.
So, Patrick, is that going to involve Doswell? Is he going to be there for that 1925 talk?
I don't know if he will or not. He's not the author of the presentation. We have it's Pat Spoden, the WCN in Paducah, and then also a co-author on that presentation is John Hart from the Storm Prediction Center.
Oh, fantastic! 2 great WeatherBrains alums right there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So talk about the sponsors for a minute, Patrick or John.
Patrick, I'll let you handle that one. I'm not real sure.
So we've had quite a few of the sponsors. Of course, we're still always looking for more. We've got the UCAR Comment Program is one of our sponsors, as well as the Oklahoma Mesonet. They're actually sponsoring all the food and supplies for the Teachers Workshop on Saturday. Griffin Communications is they're sponsoring also stuff for the Teachers Workshop on Saturday. In fact, they're providing and paying for weather radios for all the teachers. So any teacher that shows up will get a weather radio courtesy of Griffin Communication. Then we have Barron, Midland, AccuWeather, the Oklahoma City Convention Center, or the Oklahoma City Visitors Bureau, excuse me. And we still have room for plenty more. So if anybody's listening and they want to be a sponsor, you can contact me or Janice Bunting, and we'd be certainly glad to hook you up.
Hey, I'm on the social media committee for the NWA, and so is Trevor. And I know we've got some cool things planned. Trevor's been on a lot more of the calls than I have, so I might let him talk about it. But there's people always that can't get to the meeting, and so I'm really proud of the work the NWA does to try to almost simulcast via Twitter or other ways some of the meeting proceedings. It's not just like being there, but it's close. So Trevor, we got some cool things planned for this year. Do you want to? You want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing social media-wise?
Yeah, sure. Well, one of the things that I was really proud of from last year was the fact that we were nationally trending before it even started. It was the Sunday that we had the broadcaster session and everything, the student session, that we were actually already trending. So it was pretty cool to have that happen from last year, from live tweeting. And so we're going to do a lot more of that. We're really going to be utilizing a whole lot more of tag board and things like that to showcase people actually putting up a bunch of stuff. And then the NWA account will be putting up a number of slides for everybody, and not slides from pictures, but slides from submitted PowerPoint presentations altogether. So you'll have high quality slides that you can see on the hashtag as well. But even more so than that, we're utilizing some of the new social media like Snapchat and even Periscope. And one of the things that we've been talking about doing with Periscope is really giving the poster presenters an opportunity to showcase what they're doing. And many times you go to a poster session, and unless you actually are with that person and that person is not being hounded by 5 other people, you may not get a voice in. But this might give them an opportunity to have like a 1 or 2 minute oral defense of their poster and let other people outside see really what they're doing. And so we'll be going around with people that want to do that and asking them, would you like to show this off to many other people? And you can put that on the Twitter hashtag and things like that. So we're really trying to give the poster presenters, since there's so many of them this year, an opportunity to really show their work, outside from the conference as well.
Patrick and John found any questions?
Hey, Bill, your audio shot. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to do our best, Bill Murray.
Yeah, we're gonna get him a Mr. Microphone or something. No, so Nate, pick it up. You're the emergency host when Bill goes away.
Jeez. So any other questions for Dr. Marsh or John while we've got them? Well, appreciate the update, and I know I'm really looking forward to getting out to the conference this year. Really looking forward to the venue, and anything else that you guys have? Anything that you want to say before? If somebody's on the fence about coming, what's the one thing that's going to push them over and get them to the conference?
Nate, what was the speed mentoring? What was that?
I ask them, dude.
Yeah, it's I'm part of it. It's a really cool thing. Ken Carey, some folks have been behind it. It's really expanded and improved for this year, so I'm really looking forward to it. Groups of students talk to all kinds of professionals from within the weather enterprise, various levels, various disciplines, and it's just a great afternoon. It's really rewarding for the mentors, and I think the mentees get a tremendous amount out of it. Anything you want to add to that?
Having worked with students during my course, I'd love to do a reverse mentoring one of these days and have the students tell us what they think of the industry and the enterprise and what we're doing. That would be
you kind of get that opportunity
exercise.
to a degree too, Nate.
Yeah.
Because there is give and take. It is a two-way discussion process, and it's very rewarding.
I got a lot out of it last year too as a mentor. You talk to enough students and you learn some things about what their needs are. And I think this is a special time. I think we were starting to see students coming out of school actually getting jobs, and I think there's been a long time where that hadn't happened. So it's exciting times for them, and it's exciting time for all of us to help out with that. So.
I'm too young. Nobody wants me to mentor them, so.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
And I'm too old. This is the 40th anniversary, but I didn't go to the first one, so. But I do think we do have some charter members. I think some of our keynotes. Louis Cellini's a charter member. He paid $5 in 1975 to join. So.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think. We've got other charter members that'll be coming. So
Steve Harnett will be given a retrospective at the awards lunch on Wednesday. He's one of the charter members as well as a former executive director.
Well, it's sure going to be an exciting week, and we can't wait to get there. So order some good weather, guys, and Brian and I are going to come up on the train on Saturday morning, so we'll be there early.
Oh, that would be great.
It's Oklahoma City. Order up some bad weather, right?
I was going to say, what's the definition of good weather? You want good meteorologist weather or good tourist weather?
Yeah.
I want good walking around Bricktown weather.
Oh, well, that's...
Yeah.
Well,
the tornado summit's the time we always have the bad weather. I mean, with good weather, depending on how you look at it. But because because it's in March. I don't know what made us decide to do that, but October is usually a pretty good time to have a meeting in Oklahoma City.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
I would just like to remind Nate that he's the fill-in program chair should John and I not be allowed to go for a shutdown.
Oh, there you go.
I stand ready.
That makes you the vice president.
Oh dear God, no.
Air Force
You don't
Two is
want
standing by.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you for talking to us tonight, Patrick, John. We appreciate you joining us. You're welcome to stay the rest of the show. We'd love to have you. I know you got a lot to do. It's totally up to you guys.
Your assumption that I have a lot to do is probably not correct.
Well, don't give it away, John.
Okay.
So you guys want to stick around, or you want to head out?
I'll stick around.
All right,
I'll stick around.
All right, good. Well, we got a great show tonight. In addition to the warm-up act here tonight, the first guest, WeatherBrains, a two-time graduate of Texas Tech University. He was a SCEP in Lubbock and an intern in Nashville, now a journeyman forecaster in Austin. He's been with the Weather Service for 4.5 years. He was a guest panelist exactly 101 shows ago. Trevor Boucher, welcome back to WeatherBrains.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be here.
Hey, that was a heartbreaking loss on Saturday. Got to have a little football brains here for a second. What's the deal?
I was not expecting you to bring that up, but thank you.
Well, we're with this show especially designed for you tonight, Trevor. You were suggested, and we're really excited because of the week it is that you're here. And I want to introduce Jennifer, and then we're going to have a great discussion about our subject tonight. But our second guest weather brain tonight is in Huntsville. She showed up there right after the April 27, 2011 tornado outbreak. She's a graduate of Valparaiso. And Jennifer, you told me earlier that you told me earlier that your first day on the job in Huntsville was delayed by the super outbreak. Tell us how that happened.
Well, my due date was supposed to be around the outbreak, and it's pretty well forecasted. So I got a phone call saying, let's just go ahead and hold you off for a little bit. And then, of course, we had where nobody could be driving when it was dark out. So once the power came back on, I went ahead and drove down from Chicagoland and started with both feet in the water right away.
So what was it like to be in that office after an event like that? Jennifer, shed a little light on that.
I did some storm surveys with the Weather Service in Chicago as a volunteer. So it's not like I had a previous office where I was already a forecaster. So there was a lot of learning right off the bat, and I just wanted to help as much as I could with an office that was already working umpteen-hour days back to back. So I was just trying to absorb, but also trying to comfort and ask questions and learn and just see where they wanted me to go and what to do. I did some of the low-end surveys, so I didn't want to start off and some of the higher-end stuff. So a lot of surveys over in Marshall County, for example, and we all kind of came in when a lot of the bigger stuff was already done as well. So it was just wrapping things up. My first week was, pretty much busy, a lot of learning, but I think it was also a good distraction as well. So I think it was good to have an extra set of hands. Felt bad it was delayed, but it was good. I think my mom also appreciated it as well because, with our family going through the Plainfield 1990 tornado, she was kind of freaking out because that was only one tornado and this was a whole bunch. So kind of just told her to close her eyes on the drive down.
Yeah, I guess that tornado had a lot to do with your interest in meteorology, huh?
That is correct.
Well, it's great to have you here tonight, and we appreciate you joining Trevor and being with us tonight. Trevor, I want to ask you to kind of educate us tonight because, we think that, our efforts in this arena stop at, captioning, and we don't even do that on our show, So talk to us tonight about what you call the deaf culture, and you minored in this in college. I didn't even realize that was something you could minor in.
Yeah, it's not really something I knew I could minor in, and I found out that it only required one more class beyond taking sign language, and you could minor in it. And so I did, and I took sign language also in high school, so it was natural for me to want to take it also in college to fulfill that requirement. And at no point did I really ever think that having sign language as a background would ever equate to anything in the weather community for what I was doing. I didn't think that I would be using it really in a capacity that would be, helpful. In fact, I probably took about 6 years of sign language, and at one time I was actually very good at it. And over the course of the time that I took the classes, I've lost a little bit of it. So I still get by enough to the point where I can get the gist of conversations, but especially in ASL. But right now, you couldn't rely on me to interpret. But what I've learned in that time is quite a bit about the deaf culture, not just from the class I took, but also now being, working with them directly and understanding, a lot of the needs and a lot of the things that, hearing people just don't think about. This is not stuff that we ever have to think about. And because of that, we got to be mindful of those things, especially when we talk about things as impactful as the weather. And one of the first things that I thought about when I first approached this audience of people was, okay, well, how do they get warnings? And then it occurred to me that almost all of our warnings require your hearing in order to get them in the first place, to trigger you, whether radio, whether that's the notification system on the televisions, whether it's your phone making a noise, anything like that. And now we also have vibration a lot with things like our personal devices, but almost all of them are auditory reliant in some capacity. And so right off the bat, we knew that there was a need. But how that need came to me wasn't because of something that I just thought up. It was asked of the Nashville office before I was hired. And the May 2010 flood in Nashville, which some of you probably remember, I arrived about 6 months after that. And there was a group of deaf and hard of hearing advocacy people that were reaching out to organizations to better serve the deaf, because after that had occurred, there was a number of deaf and hard of hearing individuals that didn't get aid, that didn't get any warning information, didn't get a lot of the things that all of us get to basically take for granted when we receive them. And because of that, when it was being asked for, they asked me when I was being interviewed, tell us more about this sign language. Would you be interested in taking on a project that would be serving the deaf and hard of hearing? And I, again, never thought that would come up in an interview, but that was the first question. And once I said yes, I think that was one of the things I really wanted to hear, was that someone was willing to take this on. And it wasn't until I got into the Weather Service that I realized that there was so much that we could do. There was so much that we maybe have attempted to do in the past, but never really got like a national footprint for. No real precedent or way of getting started, or people talking to each other about what they've already done. And so that's pretty much been my mission now over the last 4 years, is getting people talking about what they've done, or if they haven't already started to think about these, to get them starting to think about it. And that's where we are today. And that's kind of how I met Jennifer. Was we were in neighboring offices, me in Nashville at the time, her in Huntsville, and she had got word about what I was doing up there in Nashville, and started a dialogue, and then decided, hey, we should be talking like this with everybody in the Weather Service, and saying, hey, these are the things that are working here, and it's not really that hard to do if you just remember these 4, 5, or 6 different things that to help you do it. And that's where we are today with 4 years later, and we've got some really meaningful stuff that's been done.
So Jennifer, comment on that, how that evolved for you, how you got interested in this as a subject, and what your thoughts are on what Trevor just said.
I had a little bit of sign language interest, I guess, for a long time, but I do not have the same background as Trevor. I only know here and there little signs. And so we were at a weather radio programming event, and I had a group come through, and they just were coming up, and one was hard of hearing and was just asking me to program, and his wife was deaf. And so I'm like spelling out Madison County. I was like, okay, we got that. It's like, do you have batteries? So I'm like trying to think what batteries was. I was like, let's just spell out everything. So it took forever. But I got through them, and I got through the next group. And then WCM was there, which I was really grateful for. And I was like, we need to do something for these folks. I was like, what can we do? And then I was like, hey, Trevor, aren't you doing something with the deaf and hard of hearing community? He's like, yeah. I was like, hey. I was like, who do I contact? How do I do something? So my WCM said, all right, well, let's do one class and then see what happens. And pretty much the rest is history. But so once that class was successful, then my partners were like, can we do another one? And we have more weather radios from the public health department that we had a grant. We'll bring more. And hey, we got more money from the public health department. How about bring emergency backpacks? And so not only are they walking out with an education from me, they're walking out with, supplies to help them through an emergency, or they're walking out with something that can alert them for, the next severe weather event. So the weather radios plus a strobe light is going to cost more than you just needing a weather radio. So that partnership was just fantastic, and they know they need it, but they didn't know they could reach out to me. They didn't know that I had the availability of these services. But I can't, really rack up the cost having CART services and sign language interpreters and a venue, and so they know they can provide these on a volunteer basis, or they can pay for it. And so with that knowledge of this relationship and this understanding, we've been able to do 6 classes throughout the state between us and Birmingham, and over 180 hearing loss individuals have been trained or have attended our classes, and that's huge. You may say, well, Madison County usually have 100 people that come to your class each spring, but this is a different community, and to reach this many people within just the past few years that may not have been able to come to a class and hear anything that I've been saying before, it's very fulfilling.
So what do you teach in the classes that you're doing, Jennifer?
If you've been to your local weather office class, it's pretty much the same concept, but I'm putting in a little bit more additional information that may be relevant to them. Or a lot of time I also open up the discussion for like an emergency kit. I open up the discussion and say, this is what I would put in my kit. What are some things that you may? Because everybody's going to have a personalized kit. Some may have, assisted PET, or some may need hearing aid batteries, or, extra pair of glasses, or a whistle in case they can't yell for help. So everybody's going to be different, additional medications, or, what about lightning safety? Thunder roars go indoors. I can go ahead and, hear the thunder, but, once I teach that, I'm like, okay, you can't, but how do you feel it? How do you see it? What do you do in the circumstance? Because I don't know. I don't have any hearing loss. So that's when I open up the floor for discussion, because sometimes I can't teach everything, and sometimes they have to teach me. And sometimes that is the only opportunity they may have as a group to bring up these topics. So it's the same kind of spotter class as everybody, same weather education 101, safety, but it's geared a little bit more towards some niches with them. And I also don't put as much text in there as well, and more images, because they're like, oh, look, she's cute. Oh, look, there's a presentation behind her, but I need either the captioning or I need the sign language interpreter, because that's where the information is coming from. And that's really why, we have that additional class, is because I can't fully communicate. So, and going off the lightning safety, Trevor, do you want to fill a little bit more in on that one?
Yeah. Basically, it's like you were saying, we learned a lot of these things while we started. When it came to my very first spotter training, I did a spotter training for the deaf and hard of hearing. And basically, it was exactly the same thing, except that I took out the majority of the text and just talked and let the interpreters do their interpreting and their captioning. And I left most of the visuals on there, but had to be mindful of captioning videos, had to be mindful of the fact that they're not looking at you. They needed to be looking at the caption or the interpreter. And so there's these things that I didn't know going into the presentation that we would have to learn. And so we basically took exactly the same kind of classes and safety talks that we have done before to the hearing population, gave them to the deaf and hard of hearing population, and said, where can we improve on this? Because we're just now getting into it. And took a lot of that feedback back and started sharing it amongst the two of us, and then we decided it was time to start sharing it to the National Weather Service. Because if you're not doing these things, you may be not inadvertently excluding an entire other population of folks. For instance, you can't assume that all deaf people use sign language. and that all deaf people are fully deaf. That doesn't mean that somebody didn't lose their hearing over time, and they may use captioning as their primary source of communication, or they might use assisted listening devices. And the problem with that is that since there's such a diversity in hearing loss altogether, then there's different types of communication access you have to provide. And that's what we're continuing to learn, is what is needed in order to give an all access type of talk and safety training or whatever it is. And that's what we were doing. And what we also learned in that process, what Jennifer was alluding to, is that we were using the same slogans, like when thunder roars, go indoors, and turn around, don't drown. And then we started thinking, well, when thunder roars, go indoors is kind of embarrassing to be sharing with the deaf and hard of hearing that don't hear thunder. And so we didn't. And then when people said, well, we don't hear thunder, so what should we do? And then we're sitting there with our jaws dropped, saying, "Well, we didn't even think of that," and we should have. We should have thought about that when we were approaching this audience. So now it's becoming a point of our. Now we formed a team called the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Outreach Team within the National Weather Service, which is not just Jennifer and myself. There's many offices that are participating in it across the country, and this is a discussion that we have all the time. And the Lightning Safety Awareness Team has actually tasked us with coming up with some alternative for when thunder roars, go indoors. And we're leaning towards a more visual type of message versus a slogan. But those that are late deafened that might still utilize things like a slogan, especially one that rhymes, maybe something a little bit more visually triggering, like flash dash. And so I'm going to try to do this real quick to show you an example of what we've kind of put together, so bear with me here. But if you can see my screen here, this is kind of the example that we're kind of leaning towards now. This is actually inspired by David Drobny and at Nash Severe Weather, who's been on your show multiple times. So I credit him for giving me the inspiration for doing this, because his avatar looks very similar. But the stick figure running away from the lightning storm, and then see a flash dash to safety. It's a real simple thing that when you look at it, everyone knows what the general threat is, and that they can they see it real quickly, and the message can be used not just by the deaf and hard of hearing, but from the hearing folks as well. They can see that and get the point. So it's something a little bit more inclusive to everybody, and we're actually hoping that the deaf and hard of hearing population will provide us with their own slogan or symbol and tell us what would be the most useful, because we don't want to be assuming that we know what they need. We would like them to tell us what they need so that we can better serve them.
Well, Trevor and Jennifer, I appreciate your leadership and all the work that you've done to bring the attention to this, and the whole team. I know several members of the team, and this is important work, and I'm glad to see you're doing it. You talked about adapting presentations, and I've had some experience with this. We have Vincent Wood, Bim Wood, as a researcher and has been for decades, probably at the National Severe Storms Lab, and he is hearing. He is deaf. He reads lips. I can speak to him when we meet in the hall, but he worked with the WCM even before me to develop some outreach materials, and they worked with the state of Oklahoma to develop a program where the deaf and hard of hearing community could get warnings on pagers back when pagers were a thing, and that program continues on. They worked with the Oklahoma School for the Deaf, and I'm sure there's little islands of this going on around the country, and that's part of what you talked about. But I know the first time I went to do presentations, it took some getting used to, because like you said, you have to get used to the fact they're not looking at you. I felt like I needed to speak slowly. I felt like I needed to speak more clearly for the interpreter. I'm curious if you ran into any of this, and it was really, it took several times of doing presentations like that to get out of the habit of saying anything related to hearing, anything that related to listen to this, hear this, you'll hear the warning. So I'm assuming you guys kind of went through that too with your presentations, or did you just slide smoothly into it with no problems?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Actually, one of the things that was probably the funniest situation that happened to me that I was not prepared for was that the very first talk that I gave, and all of my talks, I try to throw in some humor, and I've know enough. I mean, not all my jokes are funny, but I have a couple jokes that almost always get a laugh, and most of them came from previous WCMs that have showed me what's funny. And so I have these jokes that I always plan on there being laughter for. So I gave one, and I got crickets. And not like a chuckle here and that was it, or a smile even, crickets. Flat faces, nothing. And so...
Happens all the time on this show.
Yeah, it happens to me most often than not, but I didn't expect it to happen in this type of talk. But nothing at all. And so I thought, well, that didn't go over. I'll nix that from my next talk, and proceeded to go on to the next slide. And it wasn't until I started talking about the next slide that people started laughing. So I found out quickly that there was a delay of about 7 or 8 seconds between when I said it and then when it was actually received. And so it's not just jokes and things like that. Anything in which you interact with the audience, you're going to have to expect that delay. And so questions or anything like that, even them speaking, and the interpreter is not going to be interpreting at the same exact speed that she's actually he or she is actually giving you information for. And I have a problem also knowing a little bit of sign that I know what you're saying before the interpreter's finished talking. And so I end up talking at the deaf person before the interpreter can even start going, and then they find me to be a little troublesome. But you had mentioned, Rick, about slowing down when you talk, and actually if you talk to an interpreter, they do not want you to do that. They want you to speak at your normal speed, and so that they can... Part of interpreting isn't just the words being signed, but the level, your tone of voice can be expressed in sign language with facial expressions, with all sorts of different basically context clues within the visual way that they sign. For instance, if you were to sign stop, the word by itself, we all know what that means. It means to stop. So if its sign is just like this, stop. But if I say stop, and then you see my eyes go real wide, you know that there's something really important. But if I just calmly do it, it's a completely different message. And so same thing goes with tone of voice. So if you can't change the way that you're trying to accentuate words or accent things, because the interpreter needs that to interpret it as good as they can.
See, that's great information.
But I still feel like I need to tone my Chicagoism down. I'm going so fast. I got folks here saying, like, you're in the South. You need to go just a little bit slower.
Well, that's a whole different thing. Chicago versus Huntsville. I mean, it's a different pace. One more question, and you may have mentioned it, but I was multitasking and may have missed it. You said you took the text off the slides. Why is that?
The amount of it.
Okay.
I feel like some of them that I inherited were a little too text heavy. And so especially when I'm maybe describing different thunderstorms and their types, I don't need full-on, one entire slide full of text. I'm going to have an image, and I'm going to give you like a couple bullet points, and I'm going to describe it. Because, there may not be all of our meteorology words. There may not be a direct translation anyway. So she's going to be describing it in a different word than just like mesocyclone. Okay, well, there is probably no word for it, so I'm probably going to skip that word myself, but I'm going to be describing it in different verbiage. But they're only going to look at me, look at the slide, look at my translator, so there's no need for them to be reading the entire slide themselves. So I reduce all the text heaviness, put on more images, maybe a few more arrows to point at exactly where I'm talking about, because me standing with my arm up like Vanna White the entire time for them with that delay, my arm's going to get tired. So, like what Trevor said, there is that delay as well. And I don't know at what point in sequence they're going to look at that screen. Well, so it's not removing all of it, but with removing so much of that text, I do leave notes in the bottom of my presentation in case somebody else in the office wants to give a presentation like this next time, so they're not like, what are they talking about? What is Jen thinking on the slide? I don't know what she's going off of. So I do leave notes for future self or people.
And I think the reduction of text is a good thing no matter what. I'm a proponent of that.
Yeah, too many presentations with too much text, too many bullets on PowerPoint slides that just makes them terrible. So, less text, more images is going to be better all around anyway.
Beneficial for everybody.
And I've got two real good reasons why you want to do that, apart from the obvious reason that we just don't want to read that much. One of them is that what Jennifer was alluding to is that the presentation isn't actually the slide itself that you are presenting on.
It's you.
If there's exactly, that's you, and in this case, it's the interpreter or the captioning slide, which is a completely different projector screen altogether. So what you're asking them to do by putting a bunch of text on the slide is to read all of it and then somehow still be able to read the interpreter that's explaining what all that means, or reading the information that's on the captioning at the exact same time. So it's better to just say, okay, we're going to talk about tornadoes now. Here's some images of tornadoes doing damage. You know the theme of the conversation, and now the attention moves to you, who can then provide what would be the text for that. Besides, whether you're hearing or you're deaf, you still would rather hear it from me telling you the story than you having to read it all, and that's just toilsome. But the other thing, too, is that written English is not the first language for people who were born deaf. So they didn't read words and then be able to comprehend them just like that. Some of them read very well, but others, for instance, didn't. The text may be troublesome to completely comprehend the idea, and so it's the sign language that really gets the idea across. And it's going to be much easier to interpret. The interpreter's not interpreting what's on the slide; it's interpreting what you're saying. So you're actually doing way more work than you need by putting text on the slide. It's actually better to remove as much as you can, and then use your voice and use your talking to actually put the text into the presentation.
Yeah, I want to back Jennifer up on this too. I read a book some years ago now that I think everybody, especially in TV, should read, but anybody that makes presentations, which is all of us nowadays, called Presentation Zen, and it backs up all of the things that you guys were talking about and adds a lot to it. It was really, really helpful for me some years ago. Presentation Zen.
You'll be glad to know. You'll be glad to know, Kevin, that is required reading in my broadcast class.
Oh, good.
Good.
So, I wanted to sort of back this up toward the very beginning, and I find that a lot of us, as we come to different things in our career, different choices that we make, a lot of times these are driven by, Jennifer, in your case, a tornado was in your history, and so that helped to drive things out. Why deaf culture? Why American Sign Language? I mean, I have my reasons for taking German when I was in high school and college. Have nothing to do with beer, believe it or not. But what inspired you to sort of take this at the very beginning and then to turn it? In your case, Trevor, you minored in it. What sort of drove that decision?
In my case, it's pretty embarrassing. I was really into a deaf girl in high school, and I couldn't speak to her. And in high school, apparently that's not a deal breaker for me, not being able to communicate with them. But so I decided that it would probably be helpful for me to take up sign language, which was offered in my high school. And I didn't want to take Spanish either. I wanted to take something different. So this I've always kind of done that, just done what other people are not doing. So, and from the get-go, it was just sort of, it would be helpful for me to talk to the girl I like, and then also, the fact that it wasn't Spanish. So I got to do that, and it was after my very first visit to the Texas School for the Deaf in Austin, because I went to school in Austin. We took a field trip there, and then I fell in love with the culture. It was one of those things where I've always been very expressive. I've always been somebody who likes to use facial expressions and talk with their hands anyway. And when seeing, how much passion and enthusiasm goes into the culture altogether was something that I couldn't walk away from. And so I decided that that was something that I thought was really important, and wanted to keep doing it as long as I could do it. And now that I'm very grateful that I'm back into doing it, because I can see there's nothing better really than getting feedback from the deaf and hard of hearing, because they are so appreciative of the fact that you're doing something for them proactively. It's not something that they had to something happened for it to happen. We are doing it because we are trying to get ahead of the game versus being reactive about it.
So whatever happened to the girl, and does she know that she changed the course of your life in such an impressive way?
I don't know, and probably not.
This is why Facebook was invented, I think. You guys need to. I would love to see her reaction if she finds this out. Jennifer, what about you?
when my mom was younger, she had a friend and her parents were deaf, and so she knew a little bit of sign language and taught me that growing up. Only one level of sign language was available in high school, and you needed 2 to graduate. So I was kind of upset, so I was forced to take Spanish pretty much. And my family went through the Plainfield tornado, and my great-grandmother always told me, I want you to make a change, and because they were really upset with that day and how that unfolded. And I never really knew how to make a change. And when we had a deaf and hard of hearing group come through one of our weather radio programming events, and whatever broken sign language I did know, I tried so hard to get through, and I did get through that group after a while. Took me probably longer to get through them than the rest of 300 we programmed that day. I just felt very fulfilled. I really wanted to help them out because I saw, how they were talking to me about, the closed captioning on TV and how upset they were, how, we needed to do more, and, how much this weather radio meant to them, and, where can they get the strobe light attachments, and I didn't know, and I felt bad. I'm sitting there, like, Googling, and I really wanted to do something. And then we did the first class, and I saw how well that blossomed. And then my Alabama Rehabilitation Services, Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services, and then AIDB, Alabama Institute for the Deaf and the Blind, they really wanted to partner because they were like, we can work with you. And then I just feel so fulfilled. And I saw that maybe this was my way to make a change, because people would come up to me during classes, and you could just see it in their face that they're just so happy that you're paying attention to them and you're teaching them, and then they see that they're teaching me something. And I mean the rest of the outreach that I do just makes me just as happy, but there's just something inside that is just you can't really describe, and it's just spectacular. And I just love learning a little bit of sign language every time I go to a different class, and I have little flashcards and stuff that I try and learn so when I go there. So because my first class, Trevor was there, and there's so many conversations that are going on during your class. It's like the most loudest but quietest class you've ever been to. And this lady's like, honey, just keep on talking. I was like, but they're talking. And so they're always kind of laughing at me because I don't know what's going on. But I want to be able to communicate better with them, so I'd love to take more classes. But that's kind of just how I want to make a little change in the world, and by having other offices try and reach out and do the same, just one thing, small thing at a time. Hopefully this will inspire other diversity programs.
So let me ask you both this, because I think for a lot of folks, interacting with folks who are different than we are can be intimidating sometimes, and we want to know, are we doing the right thing? And what are things that, hearing people interacting with those who are deaf or hard of hearing, what do we need to know? I mean, you've already mentioned, speaking at your normal speed, if you've got an interpreter, that sort of thing. What are the things that we need to know so that we can make everybody feel more at ease and more comfortable?
Well, it's very much a culture. That's why the minor was called deaf culture. And especially those people that are born deaf that identify as what's called big D deaf. That's an entire culture of people. When I say big D deaf versus little d deaf, big D deaf would be deaf people who are deaf. The entire culture and community are associated with it. But lowercase d deaf is referring to deafness altogether, somebody being deaf. I know that might be hard to understand, but if you identify as a culture of people who have come together and communicate in a completely different way, using a completely different way of communicating altogether, visually versus listening, when that entire part of your life is not in your daily routine, it's not going to be the same worldview you live in. And because of that, there's a completely different culture. And be mindful of that culture. For instance, don't call it a hearing impairment, because they don't consider themselves to be impaired in any way. They've just learned to live without hearing, and so that's not an impairment to them. In fact, there's a lot of ways that they're better at certain things than maybe a hearing person would be. They're just as capable of doing just the same jobs that we're able to do, given the right circumstances or given whatever the job is. For instance, Bim Wood is at NSSL, and so he's a meteorologist as qualified, if not better, than most other people. So it's one of those things that you can't consider it an impairment, and don't call it that. You wouldn't call somebody who is the impairment and together is just a negative way, a connotation associated with it. So if you're referring to all folks with hearing loss, then say that. You say folks with hearing loss or people with hearing loss. And just try to take out that negative connotation with the fact that they don't have their hearing, because some of them are very proud of that. There's technology now that allows you to hear by implants in your brain, actually, called the cochlear implant. And people, it's a voluntary procedure, and people voluntarily say no, they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Part of it's safety, but a part of it is identifying with their deaf culture, especially deaf children that have deaf parents. Their deaf parents don't necessarily want to have their children to have this for lots of different reasons, and a lot of them are good. It may be the fact that they would be losing that connection that they have with their deaf kids, and then so there's a lot of things within the culture that to be mindful of. That just because you're hearing, that doesn't mean that you're superior in some way.
So, but in terms of if we're interacting with somebody, with an interpreter, without an interpreter, what sorts of things are do we need to be mindful of specifically within the culture? I mean, in terms of, like you said, this specifically with the interpreter, do you look at the person you're talking to? Do you look at the interpreter? Do you divide your attention back? I mean, those kinds of, I don't want to say etiquette things, but the things that just sort of help to make people feel more comfortable.
Well, with an interpreter, most definitely look at the person you're talking to. Just as you were talking to anyone, interact with anyone, you look at the person that you're talking to. So if there's an interpreter there, what are you doing? You're not looking at them for anything. You're listening to what they say. So be mindful of the person that's giving you the information and what their facial expression is, how they're coming across when they say it, because that's the important clues that you need to know. You treat people that are with hearing loss the same way that you treat people every day, and I think that's really the big thing, is that it's hard to do that as a hearing person because you think that those obstacles exist, but they don't. And if you just because there's an interpreter there, that doesn't mean that your intention has to go somewhere else. Yeah. But altogether, I think a good example for what we do is be mindful of what we're saying. Is like when thunder roars go indoors, that's one of those things we just can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
If we're giving a talk to people that are deaf and hard of hearing, because that just makes us sound like we don't know what we're doing, and that we're just disregarding their needs there. So. When it comes to stuff like that, what you were saying with the interpreter, you talk to somebody like you would talk to anybody else.
And you had mentioned at your talk here in Raleigh at the AMS Broadcast and Warning Communication Conference that a lot of these, because of how ASL is structured, a lot of these sayings depend on constructs within hearing English that don't really exist in ASL. Can you give us a couple examples of those and how they would essentially translate into ASL?
Oh yeah,
I remember finding these being simultaneously funny and sort of a oh my gosh, that's what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, you don't think about it really.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's at the talk that you're referring to. I think one of the things that makes them think is, well, rhyming. Rhyming altogether. What a simple thing for us to understand as a hearing person. How would you describe a rhyme to anyone? How would you describe it?
It's two words that sound alike.
Right, a word that sounds like another word that has the same sounding into the word. And so we're using these hearing conventions in all of our slogans, and yet this convention is completely lost on folks that have never heard spoken word. And so, is that a small number of people? Well, it's kind of hard to track that, but there's an estimation that was done by Gallaudet University that 14% of the entire country suffers from some form of hearing loss. So not all fully functionally deaf, but some level of it. So a significant amount. I mean, probably in the millions of people that are fully functionally deaf, and those people would have no idea what you're talking about. As far as first of all, when thunder roars, that's not going to mean anything. And then when the fact that they're rhyming it, that doesn't help them remember it. In fact, the way that translates, what I said in that presentation, is it translates to there's actually a sign for thunder. So it comes from your ear and then you shake. So there's no actual sound associated with it. It's just shaking vibration. So it's thunder, loud, inside building go. That's how it would translate as far as signs go. And so it's not even catchy. There's nothing really about it that would make people go, oh, I should remember that thunder, loud, building inside go. It doesn't really make that much sense. And so it's better to have. That's why we were talking about alternatives being more visually based for one, say lightning, and then also having something that was more visually based as far as the slogan goes, like Flash Dash. We kept the rhyme, but again, people that weren't born deaf would still find some utility to a rhyme, for instance, if they spoken word before.
Hey, Trevor, do you have any insights into the FCC requirement for closed captioning? It's caused quite a bit of headache in the broadcast world for especially the weather people who don't necessarily have time to try and type out verbatim what we're going to say, especially in a dynamic weather situation. It's next to impossible, and a number of the companies either refuse or choose not to have some sort of speech-to-text option, whatever that may be.
Well, that's the issue, really, in as far as the hearing loss community and the weather enterprise. And I think Jen can probably tell you also, in our first set of questions that we got in both of our talks, the first question was, can you do something about the captioning on TV? Which we can't. That as weather service employees, there's nothing we can do about that. But it's always the first question because of how.
I'm sorry, from the deaf community or from the weather and the broadcast community?
The hearing loss community, the deaf community.
So there is a specific. You see a specific request repeatedly that we're not serving in a weather situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think
and so what would you guys say, again, given my comment, obviously I can't sit and type out what I'm going to say during a breaking weather situation. What are the solutions that you guys would recommend?
That's the hardest part. For instance, our show today, there's the capability isn't quite there with the technology. We have all this technology now for live broadcasts, for things like a live YouTube broadcast, also Periscope, which is being used heavily in the broadcast community. Those don't have access to communication access availability there, and because of that, they are inadvertently alienating a certain whole group of people. And there's not really a simple solution for that. I know that some places I think they contract out their captioning to a third party, and that third party is not always local. And so when you're doing live break-ins, certain places like cities, for instance, may not be spelled right, or they may not understand what you're trying to say about the weather threat, and so they just have to do their best. They type verbatim what they're hearing, and so it's the telephone game that's being done through captioning. And there was a presentation that I just did recently with Jennifer on the Diversity webinar series that talks about captioning. I have a great example of it where here's a weather threat, and there's nothing in the captioning that could tell you anything about the threat because it's just jumbled nonsense. And so that's not the way it is across the board. And some are better than others, but already, even from the established type of communication like television, there's still a need. And the apps and the technology that's the future just hasn't even caught up yet. I mean,
it feels to me like, though, we've taken a step that's actually causing more trouble, at least on our end, because there isn't a valid solution, but the FCC came down and said whatever they said to whomever they said it, but a number of the broadcasting companies, including mine, they came in from on high and put the fear of God into the people in the stations because of the giant fines that are being levied, and I think it ends up creating even more headaches.
Yeah, I would. That's one of those things that from what the work that we've done so far, it's not something we're directly participating in as far as the solution. I just know that we get the question a lot. So I know that there's probably a lot of politics behind what you can do and how much it costs, for instance. That's another thing. There's a requirement, but the requirement doesn't specify who incurs the costs for these things.
Well, exactly, and because they don't want to incur the costs, they've passed it down to the employees, which is passing the buck, and then they feel like they don't have to worry about it, which I think is a mistake because, again, it's causing quite a bit of trouble.
Exactly, and on our end, we have the same issue with providing communication access on things simple as spotter training. We've been able to do a lot of provide this communication access through partnerships, but somebody is fronting the bill for interpreters. They're not free. They don't do that gratis all the time. I mean, some of them do, but you have to find where that money is to provide it, and it's not really clearly cut anywhere who has to pay for it. It's always passed along, like you said, and that's unfortunately going to degrade the ability for it to improve.
Thanks.
So Trevor, changing gears before we break away here and finish up the show, talk about what you're doing with Savvy and the program of the Weather Service and social media for fair weather offices.
Yeah, that's a pretty neat idea, actually. There's a team of Weather Service people now, Social Media Savvy, which is the name for it. It stands for Supplemental Assistance Volunteer Initiative, and basically a way of having Savvy as my acronym. But essentially what it is it's Weather Service employees across the whole country are allowed, folks that are social media savvy, for instance, ones that are good at crowdsourcing, ones that are have experience by going through Twitter, going through Facebook, and finding this information, and then bringing it to the office that might be in need. Take, for instance, Rick and at Norman. If you had all 122 offices that had just one person that was sitting around in a fair weather day that are watching, the May tornado events happen, and we're all watching it from television streams that we have. We have, radar software that we have access to across the country. We've got ability to be in NWS chat. We have everything that we need in order to basically monitor their social media for them. And so why aren't we then, when we have offices that are sitting under blue skies and VFR conditions, why don't we utilize our manpower to help those offices that are getting high impact events? And so we've been able to sell this idea up through region, and we're experimenting with it now. We had a very big success with Tropical Storm Bill and its landfall for Houston and Corpus in our area as well. And we had folks from Midland, Memphis, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and Amarillo and Lubbock that were all, and I believe El Paso too, that were all helping social media aid for Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Corpus. And it was because of that certain reports actually got to the Houston office, and they were, being inundated by, at that time, if you remember, the antecedent conditions were very poor, and so that they had flash flooding going on regardless of whether or not the winds were bad. So they could use all the help they could get in a short-staffed office like many of us are. It's helpful to utilize people that are available and that have the training and that have the ability to do that. So that's what we're doing now, going through the process of learning how to do that, not just for landfalling tropical events, but severe events and winter events, and being able to more efficiently utilize our social media information.
That's a really cool program. Rick Smith, any comments on that?
Hey, Rick, you're muted.
Okay, now that's better. Yeah, it's a great program, and Trevor has really taken the ball and run with it. We've done some presentations on this, and I did a little presentation on it at the WCM conference, or the WCM course in Kansas City a few weeks ago. There was a lot of interest in it, so I mean, it's something that it makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things where it's like, well, of course, I mean, all these meteorologists are geeking out on the weather anyway. If it's quiet in the San Antonio office and there's a tropical storm affecting the Mobile office, then Trevor's probably watching it anyway. So it's just a way to capitalize on that and help everybody out. And it's been a big success. Especially that one time that Trevor mentioned. So I think it's good. I think it's you use everything you've got and get everybody involved that's willing to help.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people are really in our community. How many people are looking at every big major weather event? Almost all of us. And we're talking about it on Twitter. We're finding reports and going, oh, I wonder if the office knows about that. Well, we'll see if they find it. Why are we doing that and not sending that stuff to them so that they do know about it? We don't know what's going on in that office. Maybe they're being inundated by phone calls and interview requests and who knows what. But if we could at least funnel that information back to them, then that's throughout this whole VOST, which is Virtual Operations Support Team. That's the whole idea, is to take people that are volunteering their services and their savvy, keep using that word, to bring it back and funnel this to a place that we can use it. And this is just an example of doing that internally within the Weather Service.
That's very, very cool. Jennifer, we're coming up this weekend for the Rocket City Weather Fest. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, it would be great to see you there, and I hope to see a whole lot of other people come by and visit our booth. The Weather Service will be there the entire day, and you can also see us do a spotter talk. It is over at the University of Alabama Huntsville campus. It will be split between the Shelby Center, which is across the street, and then also at the Swirl building. So if you guys want a tour of that, that is open. And it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our spotter talk starts at 3. But I'll be there the entire time. I'll have pamphlets from student education to weather safety, education and preparedness. I also have some pamphlets and inserts for the deaf and hard of hearing. So I think I even have a few in Braille left. I do have some FEMA stuff I got in Braille as well, and some Spanish. So we're prepared for everybody that comes on by, and I think we have the state time climatologist talking, somebody from Barron's talking, a local TV met. I think our spotter talk. I think even Dr. Laura Myers is coming up, I believe. So we got the entire weather enterprise for everybody. So be sure to come on by.
Great, that'll be fun. And we got to take a break here because of the clock on the wall. So we're going to roll Professor Peters in WeatherBrains 101. We've got Tony Rice in the Astronomy Report. We'll come back with the Weather Roundup, Picks of the Week, much more as WeatherBrains rolls along. Hang in there.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
From time to time, it's interesting to look at some of the people who have shaped the field of meteorology over the years. One of those people was noted meteorologist William Morris Davis, who was born in 1850 and died in 1934. He was a geographer and a geologist, and he had a deep passion for nature. He's often referred to as the father of American geography. Born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to a Quaker family, he grew up and attended Harvard University. In 1869, he received his Master of Engineering degree. Davis studied meteorological phenomena along with geological and geographical issues. This made his work much more valuable because he could tie one object of study to others. By doing this, he was able to show the correlation between the meteorological happenings that took place and the geological and geographical issues that were affected by them. This provided those that followed his work with much more information than otherwise available. While Davis was a meteorologist, he studied many other aspects of nature as well, and therefore addressed meteorological issues from the standpoint of an overall nature perspective. He became an instructor at Harvard teaching geology. In 1884, he created his cycle of erosion, which showed the way rivers create landforms. In his day, the cycle was critical, but today it is seen as too simplistic. When he created his cycle of erosion, Davis showed the different sections of rivers and how they formed, along with the landforms that come with each one. Also important to the issue of erosion is precipitation, because this contributes to runoff, rivers, and other bodies of water. Davis, who was married 3 times during his life, was also very involved with the National Geographic Society and wrote many articles for its magazine. He also helped found the Association of American Geographers in 1904. Staying busy with science took up most of his life, with more than 500 published works. He passed away in Pasadena, California, at the age of 83. If you have a question about the weather, you can drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Earlier today, NASA announced evidence of liquid water flowing on Mars. Based on a study published today in the journal Nature Geoscience, this discovery dates back to 2010 from observations made by a University of Arizona undergrad while studying imagery from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Since then, research teams have studied dark streaks which form along the slopes in 4 locations during the late spring thaw as temperatures rise above -10 Fahrenheit, or -23 Celsius. These dark streaks come from shallow subsurface flows with enough water wicking up to darken the surface. But how can this be? How can liquid water exist at sub-freezing temperatures? The answer lies in the triple point of water and ice cream. WeatherBrains listeners will remember from their thermodynamics classes, the triple point of water is that unique combination of temperature and pressure that allows a substance to coexist in solid, liquid, and vapor form. For water, that temperature is 0.01 Celsius and 6.1 millibars of atmospheric pressure. On Mars, the globally average surface pressure is only slightly less than 6.1 millibars. Just the slightest increase in pressure creates an environment that can support liquid water. That increase can occur as the landscape dips down into a crater, or from seasonal variations in pressure as the carbon dioxide ice in polar ice caps grows and shrinks. If you've ever made homemade ice cream or spread salt on your front porch, you know you need a little salt to bring the freezing point of water down. In the case of those Martian streaks, the presence of perchlorates, salts derived from perchloric acid, does the job nicely. The confirmation of liquid water existing on Mars means that the presence of microbial life, perhaps existing just under the surface, is a lot less of a long shot now. This also makes sending astronauts to Mars a lot easier because less water will have to be brought along. The researchers' next challenge? Figuring out where that water came from. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
We, ladies and gentlemen, have the 10th tropical storm of the season. Joaquin has formed in the Atlantic. Boy, that just happened a few minutes ago. Hey, listen, due to time restraints, fellas, I've got to roll some audio from our listener Tarmo in Estonia, which is always one of my highlights. And then Nate or somebody, y'all got to pick it up because I got to go some news here. So we're going to roll Tarmo's audio. Then you guys come back with Weather Roundup and Picks of the Week. We'll wrap it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, our Estonia correspondent for you. Whoop, wrong button. As I was saying, our Estonia correspondent for you.
Hello, WeatherBrains. This is Tarmo Danilso from the Hell in Clouds, also known as Laguia, Estonia. As you can imagine, the last night's lunar eclipse was clouded out over here. All I could observe was the darkening of the sky, and watch live feeds from the internet and the TV. Even as NASA television doesn't have satellite distribution here in Europe, and I think we should start a Kickstarter for that. There was live coverage by a Qatari TV channel, Al Jazeera Mubashir, that can be picked up on satellite over here. The last total lunar eclipse that I was able to see with my own eyes was back on 28th of October 2004. Back then I was in the 9th grade. There have been total eclipses afterwards, but what hasn't been is clear weather. And with this being both a weather and an astronomy enthusiast, I have a rant. In the recent days, I've had to put up with the constant extra rare super blood moon hype. First, it's called perigee moon, and calling it supermoon irks me just as much as abusing the term polar vortex. Actually, I think we've gone beyond polar vortex. We are probably already in the superstorm territory, especially today. My head is about to explode. Actually, it's about to blast into an orbit. Now, which kind of orbit, I don't know. Also, this blood moon thingy. Just stop already. That thing comes from an apocalyptic prophecy that just suggested that the world was about to come to an end. Okay, the mankind is right now pretty fouled up, making me sometimes wish the old one upstairs did hit the kill switch. But he definitely hasn't done so as of 14 hours UTC on Monday. Rant over. So that's the situation right now here in Estonia, and I sure hope I don't need to emigrate to see a total lunar eclipse or any eclipse in my lifetime again. From Laguia, Estonia, also known as the Hell in Clouds, this was Tarmo Danilso. P.S. Right now, the sun is shining. P.P.S. Well, the show notes for episode 504 with Dave Clark from the Weather Channel on indicated that there was also guest weather brain Morgan Palmer on the show. Well, I definitely didn't notice him, at least on the video version. Maybe it's just me having a bad attention span, but just saying. Alright, that's really it. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Tarmo. And Morgan had to bail out that night at the last minute. They're working on some new stuff up at the Cairo and Seattle, and he had to be pulled away at the last minute. But will be joining us on a future episode. We'll go tweak those show notes for the record down the road. All right, let's go around the horn, do Picks of the Week. This is the part of the show where we go around the digital mahogany table and share something, anything weather-related. Can be a book, website, movie, app, whatever. And I will start. And friend Tim Vasquez with weathergraphics.com posted a fascinating roundup of METAR remarks from the 1970s. All of our weather observations are coded in a code called METAR, which is a French abbreviation for something or something else. And each of them has the weather part is fairly highly formatted, but the remarks section can be somewhat free form, and they've taken some liberties with that and a couple of love messages and that sort of thing. It's worth checking out to be sure, and he says if there's enough interest, he'll go through some of the remarks for the 80s and the 90s as well. I can't wait. Of course, as we head toward the 90s, we got into the modernization, and there are fewer humans doing the observations, and computers just don't have the sense of humor there. So anyway, Bill Murray, pick of the week, sir.
Yeah, my pick of the week is all the guests that are coming up on WeatherBrains, including the great ones we've had tonight. Thanks very much to Patrick and everyone for joining us tonight. It was just an outstanding show. But next week we'll have Dr. Chuck Doswell and Morgan Palmer will be here next week. That's the understanding that we have. Eli Jacks will be on the following week with Megan Thomas from James's station. October 19th will be live from the NWA annual meeting in Norman. We're very excited about that. The 28th we'll have Cyrena Brede and Wallace Hogsett from Weather Analytics. Tom Byrne and I will be with us on November 2nd. And looking out all the way to December 14th, Eric Rasmussen and Kevin Laws will join us talking about the new Vortex Southeast project that's coming up. That's just some of the picks or some of the guests that are coming up, Nate. And I can confidently state that Dr. John Scala is probably tanked up on chocolate milk in Pennsylvania with Aaron Rodgers having thrown 4 touchdowns and leading 31-14 in the Packers and the Chiefs tonight as that route is underway.
And my Cubs just won on a extra innings walk-off home run against the Kansas City Royals. I'm excited about that, too. Brian Peters, pick of the week, sir.
Yes, I ran across an interesting thing about comes out of NSSL. It's called NSSL News, and it was 8 things to know about NSSL. So I thought I'd make that a pick so that people can learn a little more about that group.
And one of those things is that it is not pronounced NISL, right?
Right, precisely. And since you have me, I will very quickly tell you that. Dr. John sent in I'm trying to find it, sent in a link. It's a link to the Peoria Area Amateur Radio Club's balloon launch. Ooh. They launched a weather balloon. It went up to something like 88,000 feet or something with a camera on board, and they've got all kinds of great graphs and graphics that show where it went and how it went. So you can take a look at that.
Very cool. Rick Smith, a pick of the week from you, sir.
You're muted,
Rick. Button there, buddy.
You're muted, Rick.
It's a moot point.
He's trying. There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Weather Ready Schools, we talked about it at the very beginning, but I don't think people understand what an opportunity this is. This is a free all-day workshop where you get to pick the brains of some of the experts in the weather business, and it's all about keeping schools safe from weather-related emergencies, specifically tornadoes, but everything else, it's free. Holly Bailey, who was a guest here on WeatherBrains not too long ago, who wrote the book on the May 20th, 2013 tornado, is the lunchtime speaker. You're going to get a bag full of goodies and all kinds of good stuff. So if you're a teacher anywhere in the United States and you can be in Norman, Oklahoma on Saturday, October 17th, this is something you don't want to miss.
Very cool. Dr. Patrick Marsh, a pick of the week from you, sir.
I am a big fan of the Weather Service's area forecast discussion. Weather Service forecasters to convey their thoughts on the puzzle that is our atmosphere. And a friend of mine, Ben Cotton, has a collection of what he considers the Hall of Fame area forecast discussions, and he also goes back in time and state forecast discussions as well, and he's got a collection of them up on his website. And so that is what I'm going to go with, the Hall of Fame of area forecast discussions.
Excellent. I can't wait to read some of those. You've read a number of them in the past, but I'm looking forward to seeing them all in one place. Trevor Boucher, pick of the week, sir.
My pick of the week is Texas Tech with the points over Baylor. But really, it's the Illinois Emergency Management website. It's just www.ready.illinois.gov. And in their webpage, they have a multimedia section, and it's American Sign Language videos. Together we prepare. And if you click on that, it's right there on the home page. If you click on that link, it'll take you to emergency planning, how to make a kit, how to get trained, where you can go to get classes, tornado facts, tornado safety before, during, and after. There's 3 separate videos, all in sign language, all captioned, and all narrated in English. It's exactly what you'd want for sharing, preparedness type videos for that for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Jennifer Saria, pick of the week, ma'am.
All right, I did something kind of related, like Trevor, but mine is through FEMA, ready.gov, / individuals' access and functional needs. So it has all this emergency preparedness information, and also has some videos that are narrated in English, has captioning, and American Sign Language as well. It's useful for everybody, but it also is geared a little bit more towards those with deaf and hard hearing and some functional needs, and the videos are also great. So some of the stuff you'll see that we've already shared during Deaf Awareness Week, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention of everybody else today.
Fantastic. And Jennifer, how can folks get a hold of you if they want to find you on the internet? How can we reach you?
Sorry, I didn't get the memo about being a cool kid with a banner, so I saw that was kind of a loner. So they can.
We get less banner, but more of you, and that's an okay thing. So
what can I say? I got a little logo going on.
Okay.
I am on Twitter. Probably don't tweet as often as you guys do, or about nearly as cool stuff. But so I am on there, and through my email. So I'm jsariweather. So kind of like my name, and like Cool Kids Weather at the end. Otherwise, just through a work email. Which is, just jennifer.sari@noaa.gov, and, between me and Trevor, we try and answer as many questions as we can, with everybody, with all the deaf and hard hearing stuff. So, but yeah, tweet all the questions and look up the Deaf Awareness Week hashtag, and you can see all the different offices that was posting stuff. And, we may not tweet about rip currents, but like Mobile did. So you may find different graphics that you can look and borrow and retweet and stuff like that. So.
Excellent. Trevor, how can we get a hold of you?
I am a cool kid who has a banner, so you can follow me on Twitter at ZombieTrev5K. You can ask me away from here why I have that as my Twitter account. But then also my email address is just like most other Weather Service employees, is trevor.boucher@noaa.gov, and it's Boucher just like the water boy, Boucher. So that's how you get a hold of me. And most often than not, I am tweeting a lot, which many of you already know. And so, and when it comes to the NWA conference here in October, you'll see a lot more of that. So Snapchat, Periscope, Twitter, all of those things, you'll find me. So just ask.
Sounds good. Patrick Marsh, how can we find you on the internet? It looks like he may have frozen. I'm not seeing any movement there. He is PMarshWX on Twitter. I know from time to time. See, nope, there he is. He's back. Maybe not. Well, anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Okay. Well, we'll PMarshWX on Twitter, and he'll be in Oklahoma City at NWA running the show, and we're looking forward to that. So you can meet him there. It's even better than the actual internet version. So let me ask you this, Brian Peters, before we go. We've got a newsletter that you're running. And tell us a little bit about that. If somebody's interested, maybe they didn't know that we had a newsletter. Tell us a little bit about that. How people
They better visit our website then, and they'll see it because I've got it plastered all over the place. It's called Sky Writings, and it's not intended to fill up anybody's mailbox. We're going to do 1 or 2 a month, like about every other week or so. And it's going to be little stories, little short blurbs about things that are going on in the weather community. So I hope it'll be informative.
Fantastic. First few issues have been quite good, and I'm looking forward to more of that. So you can check out WeatherBrains.com. Yes, check it out.
But I don't have any entries from you yet.
Well, that's why it's interesting. As soon as I start putting stuff in there, people are going to just click unsubscribe. Delete, delete, delete. Anyway, we appreciate your listening or watching the program this week. This is WeatherBrains, the original All About the Weather Netcast on the internet. We're 500 some odd shows into this crazy mess, coming up on 10 years of doing weather on the web and on the internet and the podcast. If you want to send us an email, you can do that. Email at weatherbrains.com. We're on Twitter as @WeatherBrains. We're also on Facebook as WeatherBrains. We love hearing comments on iTunes and Stitcher. You can leave your comments there. We love those. Let us know what you think about the program. Or if you have questions, Dr. John, even though he's not the email officer, responds to emails, and you get some really amazing stuff from a really smart guy. And it's really good that he's fast, because the rest of us would chime in and we just ruin it. So we appreciate those emails as well. But if you have any guest suggestions, things like that, certainly let us know that as well. Until next week, when we do this show again at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, live via Google Hangout, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
Good show. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all being on.
We'll see you around.
Hey, Trevor?
Yeah?
One thing you didn't mention, I as a WCM in Birmingham, I had several occasions where there were interpreters, and they interpreted for me.
Uh-huh.
I was so distracted by the interpreter because I find sign language to be fascinating that I had a hard time doing my presentation.
Take it from me, who's somebody who knows a little sign too. When you are seeing what they're signing versus what you're saying, and you go, that's not right. That's not what I meant.
Well, I didn't know that, but they were, I just find it very interesting, and it was very distracting to look at my audience and, to keep my focus on my audience and not be looking at the interpreter.
Especially when they're not looking at you. You're like, for me, I'm all about eye contact, and then there's zero of it during a presentation.
You're absolutely right.
Thank
you. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for having us on.
See you in Oklahoma.
Yep. See you guys.
Go Red Raiders.
Yeah, please.
Inches of dirt. So we've made our way through. It might be still on the air. I somehow doubt it. Let's check it out. Yeah, they're gone. All right. Oh, wow. All right. So here's the mighty Heil PR40. Greatest mic known to man. I mean, that is the mic that you need. The only mic that's ever made me sound good. The mighty Heil PR40. Yeah, got the lights on here. You know, it's WeatherBrains night. We're cooking along, and notice I'm the only guy. And for our WeatherBrains friends, hello. It's always creepy that some people still hang around for this. I mean, look at this. So we got 14 people. Why are 14 people? They've been watching dead air for like 20 minutes because they know I will come back in here and sometimes say outrageous things. And if you're wondering on WeatherBrains why I'm holding a phone, is because we are on Periscope on this phone shooting back that way. So that's just really weird. So what we're going to do is a weather briefing. So if you want the SPAN weather briefing, just go over to my Twitter feed and click on the Song of the Night link, and you'll see us over there. And if you watch WeatherBrains, thanks a lot. I thought that was a great show tonight. Very interesting. Reaching people that are deaf, the people that are impaired and they can't see. I mean, there's very interesting stuff tonight. I want to go back and listen to that show again. Sometimes I learn more by listening, driving down the road than actually listen while we're on the air because so many things go on in here. But anyway, thanks you guys for watching WeatherBrains. We'll catch you all next week. Have a great week. Bye. So we're